Hi everybody, my name is Aaron, and today I'm going to show you a .NET Maui application that was originally written in MongoDB's Atlas Device SDK realm and was converted over to Couchbase Lite with Couchbase Capella App Services. In this video, I'm going to walk through a demo of that application in both Android and iOS. Now, this is a series of videos. In the first series of the video, we went through and set up Capella and app services to actually be able to use and sync information. If you haven't watched that video yet, please use the video description. There should be a link to that video in there or in the playlist. Also, if you haven't set it up, there's another alternative inside of the repo, which is also a description, a link to it in the video description. You can find a Capella.md file that will walk you through the entire setup of Couchbase Capella, getting your user set up, your endpoint set up. We do need this information in order to make the application work. If you don't have the link to that, like I said, it's in the video description, or you can go to github.com/cbl-template-app-maui-todo. This is the original name from the repo from MongoDB. Sorry about the length. Either way, once you get to the repo, you will want to clone this code onto your machine. So you can use the code button here. You can clone this down by HP or the GitHub CLI, or even in the directions here in the repo, we give you the git clone command for that. However you like to clone code, go ahead and do that. Also, we need the URL from Capella. The directions will explain how to get this for your endpoint, but I'm going to go into the Capella.md file. And if we take a look here, towards the end of it, it will tell you basically how to get to that connection endpoint. We'll do that right now, just so I can grab that URL from the Capella website. So I do have Capella open here. I'm logged in. I'm on the main home screen. I'm going to click the To-Do App Services. You can see here this linked app service. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You'll see here, these are the available endpoints that you should have already in your app services set up for sync. So I'm going to go into my tasks endpoint. From here, I'm going to click the Connect tab. And in the Connect tab, we should get a fancy URL. And I'm going to copy this URL. That I can go and put in my code then. So that's all you need from app services right now. I'm going to go back to the main home page, and I'm also going to click on To Do here so we can take a look at documents once we start syncing. And inside there, I'm going to go to Data Tools, and Data Tools should come up here. I'm going to make sure that my To-Do bucket is selected, my data and my tasks. And you can see here, there should be no documents other than this one right here right now. And that's fine because we haven't run the application or anything yet. Now, the next step we're going to do is we're going to go through and get the basically app into our IDE. For this video, I'm going to use JetBrains Rider. I'm on a Mac right now. You could use VS Code if you want. Use whatever IDE that you like to use with .NET. If you're on Windows, you could go through and use Visual Studio for Windows, right? But in this particular video, I am using JetBrains Rider. There is a free version of JetBrains Rider now available for non-commercial use. So if you are looking for IDE, this is a great one, especially if you're just trying to learn .NET Maui. And now with non-commercial use, if you're not using it for work, you can use it for free. So let's go ahead and go to the open button here, JetBrains Rider, and you need to go find your code on your computer. So my code, I have in a folder called Couchbase, and there I have a realm folder. And in a realm folder, I have this template app Maui ToDo that matches the repo name. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. And you'll see that there's a realm ToDo folder inside this folder. And inside here, we should have two files. We should have a solution file called an SLN file, and we should have a CSproj or a C# project file. You always usually want to open .NET applications from the solution file, the SLN file. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that, and that should open it up in JetBrains Rider here. I do want to keep enough room open in JetBrains Rider so I can see my Android emulator. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of finagle things here so that I can get to the point where they're both open at the same time. Perfect. Now, once we have the code open, a couple things. I assume that you have your IDE set up to be able to use not only iOS, but Android for debugging. So I'm going to use the pull down list here to see I have iOS selected right now. You can see that from the Apple icon, but if I click on Android, it should show me my Android devices. Once again, if you don't have your IDE set up and you can't select the difference between iOS and Android, you need to go and fix that because you can't debug the applications without that set up properly. Now, that URL that we copied earlier, we can find where to put that in the root of the realm to do folder. There is a Capella config.json file. Go ahead and double click on that. And you'll see here, there's an endpoint URL. We need to paste in the URL that we got from the website. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna save that and close it. And that's all we really need to do from a code change standpoint. We are now ready to run and demo off the application. I'm gonna build it both for Android and for iOS so we can play with both of those and kind of see how things work. I'm gonna start with doing just a quick debug build onto Android. This will take a second. So while it's building, I'm gonna pause. And like that, the application is now set up and starting to run on my emulator. And there the application's up. I'll go ahead and stop it, and I'm gonna now run it also on iOS so we can kind of compare the two. I'm gonna click the debug button over here. It also will take a few seconds, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause while this is happening, and I'll see you back once it's up and running on the simulator. And like that, I now have the application running both in Android and iOS. At this point in time, technically speaking, to demo out the application, I don't need Rider running anymore, so I'm gonna just minimize that so we can see Capella behind the scenes. And I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that I have the iOS application running. So we have both of these now running on both iOS and Android. Now they're installed, so I don't need Rider, technically speaking, anymore. Once you have a build on the phones, that's all you really need. So I'm gonna log in with iOS first to start out with. And you need to log in with the username and password you created in the previous video or using the Capella directions. If you don't type in the right password, you're just gonna get an error that says that the password's incorrect. Like right here, you'll see that, hey, I didn't type in the password correctly, right? If you don't put the URL in, you're gonna get a different error that says that the URL is unreachable. That means you didn't modify the JSON file to get that in. So I'm gonna log in properly now, and you'll see here for the first time, I've got nothing going on here. It's a complete blank slate. You can see there's no tasks. So let me walk you through and explain how the app works. This little icon right here, the Wi-Fi icon, this is to simulate being offline. So this, what it'll do is it'll stop sync. We can make some changes and we can turn sync on again and see those changes replicate. We also could, technically speaking, make some changes in Capella with this turned off and see that the device doesn't see them, and then turn it on and see how fast they come up with. This little icon here is simply to log out. The application is a task to-do list, okay? Out of the box, you only see your tasks, but with this switch, you can see all users' tasks, regardless who they are. There is a business rule inside the application that you only can modify tasks that you created. And so we should be able to see a UI difference between those two, and that's how the original app was written. So when we converted it, we made sure to keep those business rules intact because it's just a conversion, right? The only difference should be using Couchbase Lite instead of Realm and Atlas and MongoDB. So, but we should replace the storage engine without replacing the business logic. So let's go ahead and try Android now. We should see this kind of same thing, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and log in real quickly here in Android, and we'll see that we see the same thing. We got a blank slate as the same user. So let's start out with doing some pretty basic things like just adding a task. To do that, we can just click the little icon here and say, I'm gonna call this test 100, the very first task we're gonna create. And you can see here almost instantly, even though I didn't do anything, they showed up in Android. That's pretty neat. And if I were to go through here in Capella and click the Get Documents, we now can see here is our new document. And there it is. You can see that is completed and set to false. Now that's an interesting thing here. Let me open up the iOS again in the Android again. So let's see here, where's iOS? iOS is there. Ooh, that's gonna cover it up. Let's move it. I'm not gonna be able to get both these on the screen at the same time, am I? Let's just keep Android open for right now. And what I want to do is show you Capella. Let me make this window a little bit smaller so we can see at least the Android emulator. I know I'm not going to be able to get both iOS and Android on the screen at the same time, but I can get Android to show you the idea, and then we can show iOS also that happening. So right here is a flag. This flag for is completed is whether or not this little box is checked. And you can check inside the mobile app, or technically speaking, something else could change it, right? Maybe you have a web app that's doing it or some kind of API integration, right? What I'm gonna do is just show you how fast sync can work by changing this flag from being false to true inside of Capella. By theory, the second that this happens, sync should push it down and we should get a pretty quick update. So I'm gonna go ahead and click save, and the checkbox was almost instantaneous. That's how fast sync works. You can see on iOS is the same thing. Now I know you didn't see that because the fact iOS is off. So let's take the checkbox back out and show how fast that works. So we'll go ahead and go here and say back to false. And go ahead and click save. And you'll see here that it animated back out, and that's pretty neat. Now, I do want to show off why that's kind of cool and how this app is going to work by adding a couple more tasks. So let's go ahead and another task just so we can see this test 101. go, or let's make it 200 so it's pretty obvious that these are different. So we have test 200, and let's go ahead and add, well, let's go to Android over here and add one so we can see Android also working. So let's go to test 300. Oh, I've never used a simulator, so it's giving me the option to use a stylus. I don't care for a stylus. Let's go ahead and click OK on test 300. Now you can see that I made a task in Android and it's automatically converting over to iOS also, right? And if I were to go back to Capella here and say get documents, we should start seeing some documents. Now in Capella, how can I limit the documents to only see the documents I created versus some of these metadata documents? And that's a good question. I'm going to use a SQL where clause here. And from there, I'm just going to type in where I know that the owner ID is equal to demo1 at example.com. You can see here, I got an autocomplete in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. What this should do is limit the documents that I've created for example user 1. So now that we've done that, we can take a look at doing something a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to start demoed off first Android last time. This time I'll do iOS so we can do equal share here. What I want to do is I want to change the, let's make this smaller so I can see which one of these is which. Okay, so this one's going to be, I'm just using the Apple key and the minus and plus to make the resolution smaller and larger in the web browser so I can see more information. I'm going to go ahead and let's zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to go ahead and click the GUID for here for this particular item. This is test 100. And now we have test 100 here. What I want to show real quickly is what happens if I were to change the name of this to be test 400. Okay, I've not changed it as complete. I've changed the summary. What we want to do is pay attention over here to the simulator. Now, we have something called live query. And live query can work a couple different ways. Inside of Realm and Atlas SDK, it calculates deltas, which means the only thing that should update in the UI is the change. Now, live query out of the box will give you a listener on the entire query. Okay, and so right now I'm just saying, give me all the documents where the owner ID is equal to demo1 at example.com. Anytime any single document changes, you get the entire query result back. However, inside of the code, which we'll kind of review in a future video, in the next one in this series, I'll go through and explain how I calculate deltas. But the important thing to understand is that if you write some code, you absolutely can calculate deltas so you can get the same animation experience. What we want to see here in how the original app worked is that when we change this title, only this field changes, and the rest of these, you don't see a refresh of the entire list. And that's important because that's a user experience, right? And if you think about it, if you had 1,000 tasks in here, you wouldn't want to dynamically redraw all 1,000 tasks. Maybe you have an animation, it's like a dashboard application, and it's got a little gauge on it that tells you how many percentages of completion the task is, right? Well, if every single time you did an entire refresh of this, then all those animations would repop, and that's a terrible experience when really only one record changed. So this app will do that, and we'll show this real quick here. So what I want you to do is pay attention to test 100 here. When I changes to test 400, we shouldn't see a refresh of the entire grid. We should only see this field change. And like that, you'll see here the 400 changed, but the rest of the grid didn't update. And that's deltas, it's called. And we can do the same thing inside of Android. You can see here, Android's already updated. So I'll change the second document here. I think this is test 200. Yep. I'll change this to be 500 just so you can see inside of Android. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. We'll see that once again, only this field updated. That's from deltas. That's pretty cool. The final thing we want to do is show off both emulators and show two different users, right? Because right now we're just showing my tasks, right? So let's do this. Let's log out in iOS as the first user, and we made two users, a demo2 user. So let's go ahead and do that now and log in as demo2. Now you'll see out of the box, no tasks because demo1 created these tasks. But if I click this little switch here, you'll see I switched the subscription. That's what it was called in Realm. And over here, we just switched the query out. This should not only show the my task, but also show everybody else's tasks. Now, there is a business rule in this application that said that if you are not that user, you can't delete those tasks. And you can see here, they're grayed out. I can't delete them because I don't own them. But that doesn't mean that I can't go through and add some tasks and be able to kind of go through it and play around with those. So I'm going to add in demo2 100. Add that task in, and let's go ahead and add another task in, demo2 200. And so I got these two tasks, and now over in Android, if I were to click this, I should be able to see that there are those two tasks, and I'm logged in as demo example 1 over here, right? And over here, as 2, and you go back here, I can see those others. Now this means I can still interact with my tasks, right? So I can still check this one as complete. You see that instantly in Android that updated. I can check it as incomplete, and that instantly updates. That's because we're making changes to the documents that this user has permissions to go through and update. So if I go back and take a look here in Capella, I can change my query to be demo2@example.com. And now we'll see here's that task, right? And we see here's that summary of that task. So that's it. I want to show you these two apps kind of syncing along together. Now, the final thing I guess I could show off, and I forgot that, is we can show off offline, right? So I'm logged in as demo2 here, right? I'm going to turn this to be offline. Okay, so I'm going to click that little thing here, which should now mean what this means, and I'm going to go ahead and just go back to my task so I can show this off. That means that while I'm offline, I can go through and I can change this to be demo 3000. And since I'm offline, this sync won't happen. Okay, you'll see here I made that change, but no animation this time. Now that was for, let's take a look at this R document. So for demo 100, let's go ahead and change this one to be demo 4000. Now we've got a demo 4000 here, but if we go back to Android and take a look also, what we should notice is that didn't change. The 3000 changed over here, but it's not over here because this mobile client is offline. This one's online. So when I made that 3000 change in Capella, Android instantly got it. But the problem is this phone's got a 4000 because I updated that one offline. And this one doesn't know about the update for the other one because of the fact that it's offline. So what we could do now is take the phone and put it online. The minute we go online, we should see some changes. We should see this goes to 3000, this goes to 4000. Android updated the one that it was missing because this phone went online. If we were to refresh Capella here, we should see that both these documents are now 3000 and 4000. So everything's synced up. Offline first worked on the iOS phone, and the minute we brought it back online, not only did it sync Capella, but then all the other clients that had that data that wasn't updated automatically. And this is the power of Couchbase Capella with app services and app endpoints. You get the ability to do all the sync stuff that you could do inside of Realm with MongoDB Atlas. And really pretty much most of the UI code is exactly the same as it was before, right? It was a conversion. All we did went through and change the services code. So if you want to get a deep dive into the code of this, which I'm going to do, there's a video that we'll have linked both in the description and also in this playlist. So if you go through that next video, I'll go through and walk through the actual code, show you exactly how we changed the code in order to make all this magic happen. So I want to appreciate your time for watching this video on .NET Maui and this to-do application, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.